listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, and throughout Europe on Radio X. My email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website when it comes to the radio side of what we do, where you can find out what we've done in the past, what we're doing in the present, and hopefully in the future, www.xzoneradio.com. My guest this hour is a good friend of the X-Zone. Howard Bloom is our guest. And Howard's been called the Darwin, Newton, Einstein, and Freud of the 21st century, and the next Stephen Hawking. He is the author of The Genius of the Beast, a radical revision of capitalism, and let me say Global Brain, the evolution of mass mind from the Big Bang to the 21st century. And my favorite book, no offense, Howard, is The God Problem, How a Godless Cosmos Was Created. Howard's website is www.howardbloom.net. And my good friend, welcome back to the X-Zone. How are things in the Big Apple?
Oh, things in the Big Apple are splendid, but look at the world around us. So many things are happening right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. It looks like we'll have a primary election tomorrow that will finally coronate Donald Trump on the Republican side, which has Republicans, many of them, gnashing their teeth, and Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side, which her popularity or unpopularity figures. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are distinguished by the fact that they have some of the biggest unpopularity ratings in the history of American polling.
How does that work?
But
how does that happen?
Well, Well, they grate on a lot of people. They just upset a lot of people tremendously. Plus, Hillary Clinton has the benefit of the fact that a guy from the Scafee Mellon family, the family that derived its money originally from United States Steel, it's a family with billions and billions and billions of dollars. They set off to utterly discredit the Clintons back in the 1990s. And so for over 20 years, we've had a vast machine cranking out all kinds of tales discrediting the Clintons, and that includes Hillary. But meantime, in Syria, we've been flummoxed. We've apparently been fleeced. We've had what looked like a series of peace treaties and truces over the last 3 weeks. And apparently they're there for a very simple reason, to allow the government to mass its forces around one key center, Aleppo, and then to do everything possible to drive the opposition out of Aleppo. And that's what they seem to be in the middle of doing right now. Does our State Department realize that this is how our truces are being used, not for peace, but to focus a war effort on Syria? Then there's Pakistan. Donald Trump made a bright statement in a stupid package today, or maybe it was a stupid statement in a bright package today. Every once in a while, he hits on a truth.
Yeah.
Well, there was a doctor who helped us pinpoint Osama bin Laden 5 years ago in Abbottabad in Pakistan. And that doctor was thrown into jail by the Pakistanis. Why? Because the Pakistanis they claim to be allies of ours in the war against terror, and meanwhile they support all kinds of terrorist organizations. They like to have it both ways. So Donald Trump said this guy should be set loose from jail.
Yeah.
Good point, Donald. And then he said, really, all I'd have to do is call up Pakistan and they'd release him. The Pakistanis went ballistic today about that. They said there's no way in hell that Donald Trump can imagine that the world is a giant fiefdom of the United States, that it's just the United States backyard where America lets its dogs poop. So they were heavily offended, and they said they absolutely would not let this guy go, which is too bad. But every once in a while, Donald Trump says something smart. About a week and a half ago, he said that it's important, if we're making war with somebody, that we not tell them our strategy in advance, that we take them by surprise.
That's
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Nobody else has pointed that out. Unfortunately, it comes in a package of such dumb baloney that this man could, God knows, wreak all kinds of havoc around the world.
Well, I've got to tell you something. I've got to tell you something before we go to our break here. I would rather see Donald Trump in the White House than Ted Cruz.
I mean, Ted Cruz is a monster. You have two potential fascists here. Yeah. So we'll let you go to your break, and we'll discuss their fascism after the break.
All right, Howard. Always great talking to you, my friend, and congratulations because you've got some great news to tell us about the Mohammed Code when we come back. Howard Bloom's my guest. He's got a great book, Exo Nation. He's got great books. Just go to his website. Choose, buy, read, educate yourself, be smart. www.howardbloom.net. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. X-Zone Nation, Howard Bloom is our special guest. Howard is the author of The God Problem, How a Godless Cosmos Creates It, as well as all the other great books that Howard has written are available on his website at www.howardbloom.net. Okay, so you know what? You look at the Three Stooges, or four. Let's see, there's one, two, three. Oh, the four of them right now.
Right.
You've got Hillary.
John Kasich, right.
Yeah, well, you can't... Oh, is he still around?
Yes, he's still around. He's been relegated to New Mexico and Oregon or something like that.
Okay, so you've got Kasich, who is a hanger-oner, and you've got Ted Cruz, who's the snake oil salesman. You've got Donald...
the snake oil salesman who looks as if he's made entirely of snake oil himself.
Exactly. Like, I wouldn't even buy a car from him.
Even the snake would reject him. Yes, right.
Okay, and then we got
That's not my kid, the snake would say.
Yeah. Who said he's Lucifer?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. That was...
Bonner.
Yes, John Bonner.
Yeah.
Yes, John Boehner.
Man, he nailed it.
Yes, he certainly did. And that was not necessarily for public consumption. But then we have the two front-runners, the two people who everybody is certain, based on the polls, are going to come out as the candidates tomorrow. And one is Hillary Clinton, and the other one is Donald Trump. And this is the strangest collection of candidates.
Howard, are you there?
Still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. But I must say something. That...
Yeah.
You know what I love about the Donald?
Right.
Is I think what he's doing is he's showing the American people that you don't have to be a kiss-up to Washington, that you don't have to be an insider to get this far in wanting to be the president of the United States.
Absolutely. And he's shaking up. We've had a bag of cliches that has imprisoned us for ever since the New Deal. The Republican Party has defined itself by a form of conservatism for the last 60 years or so that wants to undo Social Security, undo basically all of the New Deal. That was going on when I was a kid, when I was in high school in the 1950s. We used to drop over to the home of one of my classmates, whose family owned most of Buffalo, New York. They owned an entire section called Cheektowaga. They were very rich. And you could hear his dad fulminating against Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal anytime one of his doors opened. So this has been going on for a very, very long time. And I think I've told you that about 25 or 30 years ago, in the 1980s, I took my friend Bob Guccione Jr., who is a brilliant magazine publisher, out to dinner, or he took me out to dinner. One way or the other, we were at dinner together because we've been good friends for a long time. He's the founder of Spin Magazine, which did some dynamite investigative journalism. And I said, Bob, we've got to get past these cliches of the left and right. The Democratic Party's been operating on a set of cliches for a long time as if it's a broken robot. And the Republican Party has been operating on another set of cliches. And we need a politics that more accurately reflects where we stand, what our problems are. That was 30 years ago or something like that. It wasn't until Donald Trump came along that those cliches were busted, broken, shattered like old teacups and put together in some new form. So he has done the political process a huge favor. Now, what he would do in the White House, I mean, look how he just stomped all over the Pakistan.
Yeah, but is that the way Donald is going to act in the White House when he's surrounded by people who have a lot more political decorum than he does?
Donald has this sense that he is magic, and that anything he does is right, and that he doesn't really have to listen to anybody else. He told you that 6 weeks ago when he said that I could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and my fans would love it.
And they did.
And so when he makes a stupid statement, look, he doesn't just make the stupid statement that, what are we going to build? He does this as an audience call and response. The chant goes like this: what are we going to build? And the audience says, a wall. And who's going to pay for it? Mexico, says the audience. Right. Now, the Mexicans are not very happy about that. They have no intention of paying for a $2 billion wall or whatever it's going to cost whatsoever, any more than the Pakistanis were willing to release this doctor who I think did the world a great service in getting rid of Osama bin Laden just because Donald Trump calls them. And we know that because they have called Donald Trump on it today. They've been very loud in their objections. So as long as Donald continues with the sense that he is magic and that because 1 out of every 10 statements he makes, 9 of them are untrue, but one of them hits on a truth that nobody else has been able to say. So, but he's not going to be able to count on that as president. He has to deal with the Prime Minister of England. He has to deal with the President of Pakistan. He has to deal with the President of India and the Chinese. My God, what is that noise? I thought I turned off all noises. Well, it's making a noise.
I know what it is. It's the Donald calling you.
Yes, well, it's a friend of mine, but unfortunately, it's coming in through the computer, so I can't turn it off.
It's all right.
It'll end. There he goes. He's gone.
Oh, live radio. What can I say?
Yeah, exactly. So, nonetheless, there's a big world here and a lot of toes that you can step on, and there are some toes that you can step on and some toes that you can't, though it's terribly unwise. I mean, when you're going to step on toes, you have to have a strategic reason and know that it's going to result in the kind of response that you are looking for. You have to be goal-oriented. You just can't thunder around and like the bull in the china shop and break things. So Trump is highly unpredictable in the White House. After all, look what's happened with his real estate holdings. I mean, Donald Trump makes the statement that nobody dares to sue him because they know that he will resist them in court with all of his might. So they're afraid to sue him. Well, the fact is that there have been 1,200 lawsuits in the last 10 years between either Donald Trump suing other people or other people suing him. And you can say, yeah, but, that's the real estate industry, and that's the norm for the real estate industry. No, there's a guy named LaFrac, who's one of the biggest real estate developers in North America, and he's had 1 lawsuit in federal court. 1! In the last 10 years. So this is not the norm, and people are suing Donald for cheating them. They are suing Donald because, for example, he built this giant high-rise in Soho and was selling units in it, was selling apartments in it, and not only did he claim that these apartments were selling like hotcakes, but his kids are part of his operation. Most of them work for his company. And they went out telling people that the building was 80% sold and you better get your property in the building quickly or you wouldn't be able to get one at all. Well, the fact is the building was doing very poorly because it was 2008 and there was a great crash going on. And people who bought properties in that building ended up suing Donald Trump for misrepresentation. Now, what has Donald Trump been doing in his entire campaign? He's been making promises like, believe me, you'll love it. I'm doing it, so you'll love it. It'll all come out good. It'll be better than anything you've ever seen in your life. He's been using the lines of a salesperson, but lines that do not depend on any reality behind them. So why have 1,200 people sued him, or has he gone back and forth with 1,200 people in court? That's a lot of people to go back and forth within a mere 10-year period. That's a mere tiny portion of his career, because many of the bills of goods that he's sold have turned out to be false. Well, what does that mean about all the promises he's made to people like me? I was about to say you and me, but you're in Canada.
And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something right now. That if Donald Trump gets in, we are going to build a wall, and we are going to send him the bill.
Yes, exactly. So, people will be surging into Canada. But you can't get away from Donald Trump by being in Canada. What Donald Trump, what an American president does affects the world.
But you know what?
So,
in the big picture, what are the choices the American people have? Hillary, who in my opinion is the worst that could happen on the Democratic side, and because we know she lies. We know that she blatantly has disrespect for the office that she was in, and as Secretary of State. Look what happened in Benghazi, for goodness sake.
Well, the Benghazi thing is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because we were lied to. Because what's her name, Rice, went up in front of us and said that this was all caused by a movie made by an American, and that, by the way, that American immigrant who made the movie that was, quote, insulting to Islam, quote, close quote, has been in jail.
Wow.
That's not what we do. That's freedom. That goes directly against the First Amendment and freedom of speech. It directly goes against it.
He's in jail
Hillary
where?
He's in jail someplace in California.
So how can she get away with that? How can the U.S. government get away with that?
Well, they found some other charge that was pending over his head, something minor, but something having to do with finance in some way. And they used it to slap him into jail in order to satisfy the Islamic world. But Hillary has been conned by the Islamic world. I have just finished, there's a book that you were kind enough to call the Rosetta Stone of the Islamic world.
And it's true.
It's the Muhammad Code, how a desert prophet brought you ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram, or how Muhammad invented jihad. And a publisher, that book I was self-publishing for a while, it was selling very well, and then a publisher came along and said that it wanted to publish it legitimately. It's Farrell House, which is a very courageous publisher that publishes extreme rhetoric of all kinds.
They're great.
And certainly the stuff that's in this book, it may be extreme, but it's mainstream in the Islamic world, and it's stuff you absolutely have to read. And what I've concluded after spending, how many years have I spent now with Mohammed? It's at the very least, it's 15 years. And actually, it's more like 50. And after this very intense involvement with Mohammed to bring this book radically up to date, a book that was finished in 2005 and now has to stare 2016, 2017, and 2018 in the face, I came to the conclusion that Mohammed is the most appalling historical figure I've ever run across in my entire life.
Whoa.
He enjoyed beheadings. He enjoyed massacres. He said, a prophet shall not take prisoners, meaning taking prisoners for purposes of ransom, until he hath made great slaughter in the land. That's a nightmarish thing to say. Basically, the religion that he left behind him, and that religion is mainstream Islam, requires that you go into battle killing unbelievers at least once in your lifetime, and possibly, if you can, more than once. Muhammad himself said, I would gladly go into battle and be killed, then be reborn and go into battle all over again 10 times. He enjoyed killing. I mean, Robert E. Lee said that it is good that war is so terrible, or we should grow too fond of it. There is a bloodlust that gives some sort of intoxication that you and I have probably never felt.
Howard, I hate to do this, buddy, but we've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation. The one, the only, Mr. Howard Bloom himself is our guest this hour. www.howardbloom.net is the website. Be prepared to spend a lot of time there because there's a lot of great information. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerreonian intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerreonian Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerreonian Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Welcome back, everyone. Howard Bloom is my very special guest. It's always great having Howard here on the show. A good friend, not only to me personally, but to the X-Zone Nation. And Howard, we really appreciate and respect the great work that you do.
Well, I have a splendid time talking to you and talking to your audience. It's huge fun.
All right, Howard, let's get back to the nitty-gritties over here. I'd like to talk to you about all the information about space, but we need to clear the 500-pound gorilla in the room, because tomorrow is a significant day for the U.S. presidential election candidates. Now, I can't understand, maybe you can help me understand this. If Hillary has what it takes to win tomorrow, how can Bernie Sanders, go towards a contested convention?
That's a very tricky proposition. I think there's a more important idea underlying this, and that is Bernie has built a movement.
Yeah.
Bernie has built the first movement in modern time to raise enough money through small voters to be able to counter the Koch brothers. And remember, at the beginning of this campaign season, they got together all of their friends who make major political contributions, and they agreed to lay out close to $1 billion in cash. And they had worked for the last over 20 years to establish an infrastructure below the radar. In other words, they were taking over local governments. They were taking over school boards. They were taking over, they got this strategy from the religious right, who started doing this in the 1980s. They were taking over state senators. They were taking over governorships. And now they knew their time had come. They knew that the big payoff had arrived. They knew, by they I mean the Koch brothers and their friends on the far right. They knew that they were about to buy the White House, and they were putting down close to $950 million, almost $1 billion to do it. And then Donald Trump came along, and Bernie Sanders came along, and upset their plans tremendously, because the American people were tired of their old formulas that they swore were going to make us all rich, and then instead brought about the Great Recession of 2008. So when Trump came along and actually said something that made sense, 1 out of every 10 shots he took at enunciating something, it was a huge relief on the Republican side. And when Bernie Sanders came along, what he was saying was so refreshing and so completely understandable that people poured money into his campaign coffers, enough money to counter even the Koch brothers. So Bernie's campaign, if you looked at his website, you would see a very simple platform. Now, if you listen to Hillary Clinton, you can't understand what she wants to do, really, aside from a few things for women. But Bernie Sanders makes it very clear. He wants to take education, advanced education, college education, and make it free. Now, that might sound like it doesn't make any sense, but hey, we have grammar school education that's for free, and high school education that's for free, and once upon a time those things were not free. And did they bankrupt the United States? No, they enriched the United States. He says that we should put $1 trillion into infrastructure upgrade, and that would create 1 million jobs. Well, I'm not sure it would create 1 million jobs, but in reality, we have $3 trillion worth of uncared for infrastructure repair, not to mention upgrading and getting into the 21st century, for God's sakes, that hasn't been taken care of. That is putting a huge burden on the shoulders of our kids and our grandkids, an enormous one, just like the enormous burden that the right-wing conservative approach to things, programs, have produced by putting $50,000 to $150,000 in debt, $1 trillion worth of debt in total on kids in college. So in reality, while the conservatives have been talking about relieving our children and grandchildren in debt, they've been doing the opposite. They've been heaping them with debt, like undone infrastructure repair, like college loans. So Bernie says we all need medical care. Well, the greatest cause is roughly $2 trillion in medical debt in the United States. It's one of the greatest causes. It is the greatest cause of individual family bankruptcies in the United States. It destroys families. So Bernie has this very simple platform, and of course he wants to dismantle Wall Street and the banks that are too big to fail. I disagree with him about that. I totally disagree with him about that. But it is a clear and understandable and simple platform. What should happen is that the Democratic Party should adopt Bernie Sanders' platform because it is clear and understandable, and nothing Hillary says is clear, and nothing she understands is understandable. Then we get back to the Muslim problem. A group called the Muslim Brotherhood in the 1990s laid out a plan for taking over North America. And they said, what we will do is we will get them to take apart their own civilization with their own hands, which is a phrase that comes straight out of the Quran. And to do it, we will sow seeds of discord and a lack of faith in them, a lack of faith in Western civilization, basically. And that's what they've been doing. So there is no question, Islam is not a religion of peace, period. After spending this much time with Muhammad, I know that. He led 65 military campaigns. Actually, he commanded 65 military campaigns. He personally led 27 of them. And depending on which of the original biographers of Muhammad you're reading, he either killed one man or he killed many. These are the 7th and 8th century biographies and 9th century biographies of Muhammad that say this. And I think I said before the hour, Muhammad required that every single able-bodied male go to war and kill unbelievers at least once in his lifetime. That's not a religion of peace. There's no way in hell that's a religion of peace. But the Muslim Brotherhood was determined to convince people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama that Islam is a religion of peace. That's a total falsehood. Islam is the only religion I've ever encountered in my life that is a total and complete religion of war. So you've got Hillary Clinton going around like an absolute doofus saying that, oh, we all know that Islam is a religion of peace. No, I'm sorry, you've been fooled, Hillary, and this is being used, this propaganda line, this lie, is being used to get us to take our own civilization apart with our own hands, and you've fallen for it. That's not acceptable. Bernie Sanders, I don't know whether he's fallen for it or not. Donald Trump sees through it. Donald Trump said, 1 out of every 10 things he says is the truth. And one of the truths that he said is, we don't understand what Islam is all about, and until we understand it, we should stop everything we're doing and simply hold things as are until we do understand it. Now, there's a guy named Ali Mazrui. Once upon a time, when the Council for American Islamic Relations went to my first publisher, Atlantic Monthly Press, and demanded that my books be taken out of print and that I never be allowed to have a book in print again, they got my publishers all upset, and my publishers said, okay, you've got to take this this chapter they're complaining about and fact-check it. Well, I fact-checked it, and they were lying their heads off. Things they said weren't in the Quran, not only were in the Quran, but were even more blood-chilling when you looked at them in context than I had originally suspected. And my editor at one point said, oh, if you talk about Muslims trying to out-procreate us, you're just giving a racist lie. This is a very intelligent editor. He has written award-winning books since those days. I admire what he's done tremendously, but he was dead wrong. There is a Muslim population specialist who is named Ali Mazrui. He was the head of some sort of a peace organization that was funded by the State University of New York. He also was given the funding for a 9-part television series on PBS called The Africans. He's a man, an august scholar. And he did an entire article about about what he called procreational jihad, out-procreating the unbelievers, and by out-procreating them, taking over their territory. Well, that's part of what this massive immigration flow, this massive refugee problem is in Syria. It's a problem created by a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. That's what the Syrian civil war is. It is not a civil war. It is a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So if there are 7 million people displaced by this war, who should have the responsibility? Iran and Saudi Arabia. Are they taking any of the responsibility? No, they're throwing it onto Europe. And what does Ali Mazrui say is the goal of a massive population shift like that? Procreational jihad, swamping other cultures by outproducing them. And Ali Mazrui gives the example of Africa. When the first Muslims went to Africa, they were fleeing from Mecca. They were fleeing from being persecuted in Mecca. And at that point, Islam was a tiny, tiny little religion and was being hideously oppressed, actually, in Mecca. And Ali Mazrui said once they got there, they acquired as many wives as they possibly could, because every child born to an Arab is considered an Arab man is considered an Arab, and every child born to a Muslim man is considered a Muslim. Well, now let's look at another aspect of things that Ali Mazrui wasn't looking at. Muhammad, when he gives all of his sexual permissions for those people who win in battle, he says you can take all the women and children as sex slaves, and you can kill the men, or you can turn them into slaves too. And he says you can take the female prisoners by the right hand, which means rape. Now, why is rape a holy deed in Islam? And we're not talking about just jihadist Islam. We're talking about Muhammad's own Islam. Because if you rape a woman and she becomes pregnant, the baby she gives birth to is automatically a Muslim. You are spreading procreational jihad. You are using procreation as a tool of jihad to ultimately do what Muhammad mapped out that Islam will do someday and must do someday in 629 AD, when he sent his letters to the 6 biggest emperors that he knew of in the world. And that was, he mapped out global conquest. He was unequivocal about it. And he said, and God unrolled the scroll of the earth to me and said that all that is to the east shall be yours, and all that is to the west shall be yours. And for you, the world is made pure and made anew, which means plunder the hell out of it, massacre as many people as you want, then take over people as slaves and take over and run the whole world according to Sharia law. This is Muhammad's own form of Islam. And in Islam, I know all of this sounds terrible and racist and extremist, but Muhammad was an extremist. All of this is basic to Islam. And Muhammad envisioned world conquest, and within 30 years of his death, his followers had taken some of the biggest empires of their day, superpowers, when after all, the Arabs were just a little band of desert fleas and nobody had ever heard of them before. Within 100 years of Muhammad's death, they had taken the biggest empire in the history of the world, 5 times the size of the Roman Empire, 11 times the size of the conquest of Alexander the Great, and 7 times the size of the United States. Nothing like it has ever been done in history. Huh. And because God has allowed them this privilege of taking over so much of the earth, they imagine that if they work hard and they work multi-generationally, they work with patience and persistence, God will give them the rest by violent means.
So what do you think would happen or will happen as Donald Trump gets closer to the presidency?
Well, a lot of us are going to panic. If Canada is willing to take in an extra 3 million Americans, I'm sure it won't be difficult. Hillary is going to have to hit below the belt the way that Donald is going to hit below the belt. Donald will have the benefit of the 30 years or so of the Scafee machine, the Scafee melon machines, mudslinging to benefit from, and she has made mistakes like Benghazi. That was a huge mistake. It wasn't a mistake. I mean, there wasn't sufficient security there for a reason. Congress, the Republican Congress and the Republican Senate had been pulling money away from the State Department and pulling money away from security. It was their fault that we were so vulnerable in Benghazi. But then to tell us a lie about Benghazi, to make up this fairy story about being offended by a film when this was obviously a highly organized attack, sorry, that's just not acceptable. That's not what we expect from the people in our government. So Donald Trump is going to hit below the belt as hard as he can, and Hillary, I've never seen Hillary hit with anything but oatmeal, but she's going to have to hit below the belt too, because those 1,200 legal cases I'm talking about, those involve a lot of skullduggery.
Well, I'm going to give you some breaking news tonight that we found through our various sources in the United States. And at this time, we are announcing that the running mate with Donald Trump for Vice President of the United States is Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's terrific.
I understand. Well, I understand that it's going to be a blow-by-blow convention.
No, Rob, you're amazing. Oh, my Lord. Well, it's going to be a very bizarre election, and it's going to rampage through territories that the cliches have kept us away from, but it's time to wake up from our cliches. We've been sleepwalking like zombies for a long time. I don't know if this campaign is going to really wake us up. Hopefully it'll get us thinking a little bit more than we have in the past, and recognizing that politics is about real things, not just muttering the same cliches decade after decade after decade.
But you know who's making a lot of money on this as well? CNN, NBC, Fox, MSNBC.
Especially,
whoa.
And poor Rupert Murdoch, you know, he thought he was going to be a kingmaker, and he does not like Donald Trump. He had a fight with Donald Trump, And whether he's reconciling himself to Donald Trump, I haven't looked at Fox News today to see whether there's any reconciliation underway. But you're right, CNN and Fox News are going to do very well. It's unfortunate that Al Jazeera, which had a terrific news operation in the United States, one with whose statements I sometimes disagreed profoundly, but they covered more of the international affairs than any American outlet. It's too bad that they went under 3 weeks ago.
Oh, no.
You know, they had announced they were going to go under about 4 months ago or 5 months ago, and then they held in there. They hung in for some strange reason, but finally, 3 weeks ago, they just disappeared from the airwaves. And it's unfortunate. We needed that perspective.
Yeah, it is rather unfortunate because the way I see it is that the media has the ability to taint whoever they want. And I've watched them play, you know, like CNN, you've got Brooke Baldwin, who is dead against Trump. You've got the Jake Tapper, who's kind of plays middle of the road with Will Blitzer. And then you've got the morning crew, and and one thing I've noticed, Trump is always making himself accessible to the media where the slimy, the snake guy, what's his name again? Oh, yeah, Cruz.
Oh, Cruz, yes.
Doesn't.
Right. Well, Donald has a talent for manufacturing headlines. He's able to give the press raw meat every single day. And Hillary does not have that ability whatsoever, not a bit of it.
I can't understand what she's saying. Sure she does. She has that ability. She lives with Bill.
Well, that's true, but she nonetheless she doesn't come up with anything that's punchy or interesting. All she keeps saying is, "Let's all do this together. Let's work on love, not on competition." Well, that doesn't carry any headline value, nor does it mean anything when it comes to policy. Doesn't mean anything.
How can she run for president of the United States when under investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation? How does this happen?
Well, because it's a highly partisan thing. There's an investigation because the Republicans have been trying to sabotage her for a long time. And if you look at the facts, the fact is that both previous secretaries of state, who were both Republicans, used Republican National Committee servers.
All right, Howard, I hate to do this, but we've got to take our final break. Howard Bloom is our guest. Check out the book, The God Problem, How a Godless Cosmos Creates. www.howardbloom.net. We'll both be back wrapping up this hour on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Howard Bloom is our guest, www.howardbloom.net. All right, Howard, you want me to give you my thoughts on tomorrow?
Absolutely.
All right.
What do you think is going to happen?
Trump is going to...
Not tomorrow, but what do you think is going to happen between now and November?
Oh, there's going to be more dirty tactics that are going to be on both sides of the coin than the American population has ever seen. There's going to be a lot of dirty politics.
And what do you think will happen if Trump becomes president?
The United States will prosper. There'll be a wall, in between the United States and Mexico, and Mexico is going to have to pay for the wall. Just kidding.
Oh, Lord!
And I said that, and I said that with a straight face.
Yes, you certainly did. Congratulations,
Yeah.
You pulled it off.
You know what? But in all honesty, I when you look at the big picture, the United States of America is a business.
Certainly is.
And
we are all businesses.
And I think that Trump, when it comes to running a business, will do a better job than Hillary will. Now, I also understand, and I agree that there's a lot of diplomatic going-ons that will have to be taken care of, and I think that this will all depend on how strong those that he brings into his inner circle will be, and who the vice president will be as well.
Right. So a lot is going to depend on his ability to pick personnel. Well, judging from the success of his election campaign so far, he may have a gift for that. You never know, because a lot of the things that he's lent his name to, he's licensed a lot of the products that are allegedly his, including buildings.
Sure.
And a lot of those projects have gone very far awry, like the Trump Academies. So you never know. He may not be as good as it looks. But here's the positive news. If it ever gets too hellish down here on Donald Trump's Earth, we can always go to space. That Buzz Aldrin kidnapped me into the space community 10 years ago and got me to form the Space Development Steering Committee. Well, the people in my group have been looking at Elon Musk and SpaceX as a savior, because Elon is accomplishing the impossible day after day after day. And one of the things that frustrates us all is that NASA allegedly has a plan for getting humans to Mars, but it's not a real plan. It can't be done within any budget anybody could possibly come up with, and it's too complex and wasteful and ridiculous. So it looks like Mars is not really on NASA's agenda, even though supposedly it is. Well, guess who has Mars on his agenda? It's Elon Musk. He's been aiming for Mars the entire time he's been operating SpaceX, and this week he announced that not in 2038, in 2018, in 2 years, he's going to put his first Dragon capsule on Mars. That's going to get humans to lift their eyes. There's an old Bloomism: a nation that looks up goes up, a nation that looks down goes down. America has been looking down. This is going to get America to look up.
Said like the true Howard Bloom that we all love and respect so highly.
Well, now the question is, we got to turn that ruddy red planet, which is barren as could be, we got to turn it green. It's time to garden the solar system and green the galaxy, to quote the title of a mission statement that I wrote, a 110-picture mission statement for the National Space Society, where I'm on the board of governors and the board.
Howard, as always, time goes by way too fast, but I know that you're a very
Rob,
busy
it's
man.
a pleasure.
And you do me a favor, take care of yourself, my good friend, and I look forward to the next time that you and I meet here in the X Zone. Until then, Howard, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, Howard.
Good night, Rob.
Exonation, Howard Bloom, www.howardbloom.net. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.